Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Sunday of Week 4, the Wild Rift European Championships. Yesterday, we said goodbye to two more teams as Weigers would fall to Team Dark in our first series of the day. And Team Dark, we saw them twice this week, and the first day didn't look so good for them. And they said, hang on a second, let's just take the team compositions that we lost against, put a Seraphine as a carry, and just crush through Weigers. And it looked very, very good for Team Dark. They've kind of bounced back, found themselves their spot in the lower bracket to advance to the next round, and they were the first of two teams that would advance. And the second team, we thought Na'Vi would make quick work of Aphelion, and game one started to look a little bit rough for Na'Vi as Aphelion came out the gates really strong. Na'Vi managed to settle themselves, advance 2-0 through to the next stage of the lower bracket. Two more teams will advance today, two more teams will go home. Let's get the show going and find out who's staying in.
Riot Games Wild Rift EMEA Championship. Everybody round here know we get hype. Everybody round
Welcome everybody to our Sunday broadcast for the Wild Rift EMEA Championships, here focusing on the European group stage. I'm Stress, joined by Excoundrel and Stuart for today's broadcasts, and I think we got some exciting games, and we're going to see more of the lower bracket action today. Excoundrel, I know that this will be the first time you and I are casting together on WREC for our first series today. What's your favorite thing that you're looking forward to today?
I think I'm very excited about our second series. I think it's going to be a really close one. Both teams potentially could take it. We'd say the first series was a little more one-sided, but of course, surprises have already happened in our competition, and I wouldn't quite draw the line 100%.
I get it. What you're saying is you're not looking forward to casting with me in our first series.
Yeah,
Understood totally.
You got it. Yeah, that's it.
We'll be tagging Stuart back in for that later today. Stuart, as we look through the bracket, we of course have known our upper bracket games, which I believe will be taking place next week between Viv, Gamelord, Rix, and Formulation. From those matchups, like, we still have a lot of strong teams left. Who are our top contenders that people should be looking at?
Oh, it's really, really tough because we got some really, really strong teams in the lower bracket. I think Rix and Gamelord are going to be up there. I think they'll probably be our finalists if I was to make a really, really bold prediction. But as Excoundrel said, we've seen surprises already. We've seen some teams that we didn't expect to win as well. So I'm really excited for today's games as well. Yeah,
today's games are going to be great, focusing on the lower bracket. Our final two teams will make it through the lower bracket into the next round. It'll be Team Queso taking on Blows to start the day. And that closer series we're expecting between Zero Zone and Control will round out the day. I think this first one, when we're looking at it, a little bit more one-sided. Team Queso are one of the teams that we've said coming into this that are like, well, they're going to be very strong, and the community thinks so as well in general. I think everybody's opinions when we look at social media is all focused on how good Team Queso are going to do. But let's take a look at some of the tweets. Remember, you can get your tweets on broadcast using hashtag WREC. We want to hear your predictions. We've already got our predictions coming through. Which I've not done so well on the prediction game. I've kind of gone with some bold ones from here and there, but we're unanimous pretty much today.
It's all good, mate. You know, we're not keeping count. I'm only keeping count in my mind, so I can only taunt you forever from my own personal checklist. But yeah, it doesn't look like too many people. And Carmeline, she didn't have to choose with her heart this time round because it's just it's a win-win on Queso or Blows. They're both Spanish teams, so she's probably pretty happy to pick up the Queso though. She has gone against the grain with the Zero Zone Control matchup there. The only person to do so, Stress.
Yeah, which I actually think is really interesting because Zero Zone are the team coming from the upper bracket. Like, that's different. Stuart, you and I and the rest of the broadcast team have all predicted that Control upset. Like, that's the first time we've had a unanimous upset vote.
Yeah, I feel like Control have definitely grown a lot as the tournament has gone on. I feel like they're gaining a lot of confidence as well. And Zero Zone have looked good as well, but coming off of the defeat, obviously, last time, it's a bit of like, it could go either way, to be fair. I feel like Zero Zone might have the edge, but I have trust in Control, and I feel like they're going to take the victory.
That's fair. I think...
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, my personal thought is that Zero Zone is probably the better voting because Hells has battered Control into me over the course of the last few weeks. And I'm now like morally obliged to vote for Control, so that's why I voted.
I totally get it. They're a bit of a fan favorite. A lot of support today, of course, for Queso being a fan favorite, and then we can see the Zero Zone team getting their support out there as well. I think that's one thing that Control have done really well so far is they've actively engaged with a lot of people in the community. Like they're getting their agents like Hells to kind of propagate in, and I know Stuart's been doing the work as well with Komolto, like trying to sell him. But Komolto's look great. Stuart, speaking of your relationships with players, I know you're going to be doing an interview in just a few minutes, so we'll let you get ready for that. I'm looking forward to hearing what I believe Ryu will be joining us and hearing more from him about Viv. So, Xcandrel, you and I have a little bit of a moment or two to talk through some of our headlines that we saw coming out of yesterday's games, and I think we have to start with the Fat Man and look at that jungle performance and the flexibility of Gragas, because this pick has really quickly in Europe got to first pickable.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how this has come off the back of what was a simple AD buff a couple of patches ago. He's really become a very viable pick for competitive teams on blue side first pick, mostly because of that flexibility, but also because he can build AP, he can build tank, he can go jungle, he can go support, he can go mid, he can go top. It doesn't give anything away about your draft, and it's actually a very viable pick that can be flexed into multiple different situations. You know, we saw the one-shot Vayne with full AP Lichbane Gragas. We've seen the full tank Gragas in the Baron lane to provide you something with a bit of a front line. The flexibility of this pick is just so powerful right now that I think a lot of teams realize that they like to have it in the back pocket because they know it's a safe first pick that they can then transition into anything that they want in their competition.
Mm-hmm. And we're absolutely going to talk more about this pick through the draft if it gets through as well through the game, because Vex had an absolutely insane performance yesterday on the Gragas. Vex was one of the members that helped our top two teams advance with quite a strong team fighting style. And I think this is what looked very successful yesterday as we said goodbye to Aphelion and Weigers. This team fighting style from Formulation that we saw on Friday, and then more from Team Dark and Na'Vi yesterday, I think is really difficult to deal with when you start bringing this much crowd control. Like teams just kind of crumble under it.
Also, you're kind of seeing how teams are flexing to play the game right now. You know, we're moving away from having strong individual side lane picks like the Fioras and the Camille's, and we're starting to see the Seraphines, see the Gragases, see these AP carries that are designed to be more teamfight orientated. We saw Vex running with the Yuumi pick, which I loved, by the way, because of that AP adaptive force ratio buff that she got on the last patch. You know, playing full AP Gragas suddenly really hurts if you've got a Yuumi attached to you. So it's a very interesting adjustment that we're seeing from a lot of teams here. But you know, the team fighting style is definitely coming back in full force for Wild Rift, and the teams that we said goodbye to just were getting beaten out in those team fight situations. Obviously, it was a pretty close series, you know, even though the score maybe didn't quite reflect how close those games were for the Aphelion Na'Vi series. But I think, you know, everyone that got through to this stage of the tournament is a top team in Europe. So, you know, the guys who we've said goodbye to, there's nothing to be ashamed of. They had a great tournament, and I'm sure we'll see them again in the future.
Exactly that. We've had games that looked like they were about to be closed out, like by Aphelion against Na'Vi. Like game one, they were so far ahead and could very well have closed out for them. But yeah, as you said, we've got so many top teams here. I want to hear from a member of one of the top teams, still in the upper bracket of Viv Esports. Ryu, the substitute, is here with Stuart to talk us through a little bit more about Viv Esports.
Thank you very much, Stress. I'm indeed joined by Ryu. Ryu, thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, for yourselves in the upper bracket, you'll be playing off, I believe, you know, next weekend. What do you feel about that matchup next weekend?
I mean, I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. I think the bottom tier teams are all sorted out now, so I think all the rest of the teams are insanely strong, and I think the days of stomps are over.
hopefully the days of stops are definitely over. Hopefully get to see some more 2-1s. For yourself, obviously as a support player, how do you feel like the meta's shaping up at the moment? Obviously, we're seeing a little bit more Seraphine as a carry. We're seeing a lot more, roaming supports like yourself as well. How do you feel about the meta at the moment?
I think the meta is getting more and more diverse. I think for a long time we've seen bot lane mages and Varus in particular that are trying to neutralize the bot waves, which allows the supports to be roaming a lot more. But I think slowly with a lot of the tanks becoming meta, we see more Vayne, we see Ashe. Some people even pick out the Seraphine and just ban out all the bruisers like Fiora and Camille. So I think the meta is I would say the meta is still the same. I think those roaming supports are the strongest. But it's funny to see the different kind of teams with their different playstyles having answers to what we believe are the meta picks. So I think obviously that changes the meta a little bit, and we have to be prepared for different picks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's a bit more diverse. There's more counter picks coming in as well. And then for today's matches, obviously Team Queso against Blows, and then Zero Zone against Control. What are your predictions for both of this series? Who do you think is going to take it?
I think TQ will blow them out of the water, and then I think KTL against Zero Zone will be closer. I think Zero Zone will take it, but I think KTL will maybe put up a match.
Awesome stuff. Ryu, as always, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast today. We appreciate it as always. Good luck again next week as well, and back to Stress next time to get us closer to the first series of the day.
With puns like that, Ryu, do you want to come on the broadcast team? Like, that's the joy of being a caster.
You ask him, he will say yes. Trust me. You ask him, he will absolutely say yes. That man would make a great caster. I hope he gets a chance someday, because I think he'd be banger.
Let's hope he's still got some playing time yet. Ryu, like, stick as being a player. You were great in week 1 when we saw you as well. So you don't have to come and be washed up yet. It's all good. You can join us at some point. Really interesting to hear about the meta. And I think this is one of the most fascinating things for me. And I mentioned this a little yesterday to Stuart, is EU, we have a very specific meta, mage focus, like melee mid laners. The rest of the world in Wild Rift are playing like totally different things. We see a bunch of different AD carry picks, like Korea play very different styles, like Yuumi top. I love that there's such a diversity right now. And you can basically, as long as you're doing something with the intention, you can make it work.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely, Stress. Lots of cool things to talk about. And I'm sure the two teams that we've got, they're going to probably run that EU meta, but we'll see what they can pull out.
Well, let's see who's playing in today's games. I think some fan favorites here. First of all, with Team Queso, I think a lot of people have high expectations for Team Queso, especially with swapping in their bottom lane as well, with Joey Skaggs and Methanol coming in. On the other side, Blows, I think a little bit less known by a lot of the community, but is Bamboo, Havivu, Esther, Savek, and Lobo. And I think Savek actually had a really good game last week. We saw him on the Orianna kind of turn a bunch of games around. So I'm excited to see what Blows can do. I think it's a very uphill battle though against Queso.
I think you're right here, Stress. I think realistically, Blows have shown a bit of heart, they've shown a bit of metal, but the overall expectation here is that Queso are the significantly better team. Queso come with the weight of being Europe's representatives at the Horizon Cup last year. They've got, well, a lot of people tout to be the best jungler in the entire region in the form of Andre, and we all know how impactful jungle is in the Wild Rift meta. So I think it's going to be tough for Blows, and I think Queso are the expected victors, but of course, anything can happen on the day. So we'll see how they perform, and of course, see how draft pans out.
Yeah, Andre has to be a player that we focus on coming through this, because you give him like any kind of a carry out of the jungle, and he's just going to rip through his opponents. That's one of our key picks that we want to keep our eyes on. Stuart, what else should we be focusing on for Team Queso versus Blows?
Thank you very much, Stress. Yeah, for Team Queso against Blows, we have the Spanish clash. We know how big the Spanish community is, and both of these teams as well, because they've been playing against each other before in previous community tournaments, they might know each other a little bit more than what we know. And then talking about Team Queso, we have that priority on Yuumi. We've been speaking about Yuumi a lot, and Team Queso have played Yuumi before with Olaf, so it'd be really, really interesting to see if Yuumi will go through the draft in this matchup. And then we have to see if Blows can surprise Team Queso. kind of surprised us a little bit beforehand, beating Principality. You talk about Savek as well on the Orianna of them AP mages in the bot lane. Joey has been doing the same as well with the AP mages like Morgana, which we haven't seen too much recently, but they might be trying to pick it out again. Yeah, Blows have a complete mountain to climb in this series if they're going to try and take it. But surprises has happened before, and I'm really, really excited to see what they're going to be coming up with in this first series of the day. So back to Stress and Excoundrels to get us into picks and bans for game number 1.
Yeah, we are pretty much there with picks and bans. So the housekeeping is out of the way. We get to the fun stuff. And I think, you know, a lot of people have heard us talk about Yuumi now for about 2 weeks. I think Queso are the team that have shown it the most. They played it 2 games last week, and it looked really strong when they had it. And then after seeing it yesterday with the Gragas, I wasn't really expecting it to have so much impact, but like now it's a pick that can be so much more versatile even than I was expecting. I was like, if you ban out Olaf, you ban out Jax, maybe it doesn't have as much presence anymore. Nope, still very, very strong, even on mages now.
Yeah, I think the thing is that the adaptive force change from 1.75 to 2 on the AP ratios was actually a really big deal. And I think that is now heavily influencing some of these high scaling mages. It's like Gragas has got some really good scaling on his kit. Orianna's got great scaling. You know, Morgana's got pretty decent scaling. So anybody that's got a high scaling AP potential, like Yuumi is going to make significantly better. So I think it's a very interesting point in the meta we're in right now, especially because we haven't had much time for people to test those statistics. But I think, yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see if it gets pulled out.
Yeah, as you can see our lineups once again, that AP scaling, I don't think we were expecting such a big presence. Like I know that the broadcast team, we've been talking a little bit in the week, and then I even was watching N-Step's stream. The thing we should make a note of from these rosters is that it's Gallus coming in the top lane for Blows Gaming has been a bit of a change. But yeah, I was watching N-Step's stream, and when N-Step, one of the designers, was talking about like, oh, what was this AP ratio change about? He's like, oh, someone on my team just wanted that. It's going to be a tiny change. It's not really going to impact anything. And then you see these like burst mages come through, and they get this extra spike of damage and just one-shots people. It's interesting to watch. I wonder whether that one's going to get reverted. But nevertheless, that's about patches in the future. We are on 3.0.B, the one you are playing on at home currently. So we are going into the draft, and we are ready to get things going for Queso versus Blows.
I'm excited. I think the draft is going to be very telling. I think, as we said before, both of these teams have been pretty versatile in what they can play, and I think Queso especially are one of those teams that's just willing to kind of go all out in terms of like trying new things out. A very team that's very adaptable to the meta. You see the Morgana ban already coming through for Team Queso, so they don't want to see Morgana in mid, or they don't want to see it in the bot lane too.
I think one thing I've heard from Hells and people talking about Joey is how confident he is playing mechanically difficult champions like the Vayne and champions like that. So I think it gives them an edge over where Savek's Orianna has been really strong, and we've seen a handful of mages. Team Queso could just go, okay, let's just play AD carry meta and just play something a lot more mechanical in that bottom lane that he can flex a little bit more on. Varus taken off the board, Garen taken off as well. So a lot of these just strong meta picks taken away. Nothing too surprising yet from the bans.
No, Garen is not something that usually gets 100% banned, but it's definitely something that I think when you're trying to, I would say if you're trying to exploit skill differences, Garen is a champion that can band-aid skill differences. I should know. I was a Garen one trick in the Baron lane for a very long time. You can get away with playing Garen badly and surviving and still being useful. So I think when you're trying to really stomp, especially when you've got like Acolyte in the Baron lane, it makes a lot of sense to try and take away some of the safer picks that would allow or restrict what Acolyte could do in terms of his individual impact in the game. We're going to see the Yuumi banned, and that will be the immediate lock-in of the Olaf. Now we have seen Olaf flexed, of course, most likely in the jungle, but sometimes we see him in top and Baron lane, and even occasionally have seen him in mid.
Yeah, and whenever we see an Olaf, I always have to think, okay, will they be going towards the likes of a Lulu in support? Obviously, it does change the playstyle a little bit. Renekton, high priority here, with Gragas still available too. So there are a couple of these big picks we've been talking about still up. Camille is up, Jace is up, although I feel like we haven't seen Jace do too well this weekend when he's been available. Support pick is going to be picked up in the way of Thresh. That does give Blows a decent amount of flexibility on what mage or carry they pick in that bottom lane. They can now go into that that lower mobility category where you go to the Ziggs, you go to, you know, less mobile like Orianna, that type of champion.
Yeah, I would say two just strong power picks from Blows. They've gone for Renekton, who's pretty much good in almost any scenario, and then the Thresh, most pros consider him like a top tier support right now. So I think there's two strong power picks that don't really reveal too much about your composition. It's a very safe early go. And there you go, exactly as you mentioned, it is a very classic combo. I'm having flashbacks to TSM Dyrus, where you just pick the Olaf, you pick the Lulu, and you just stack them together in the middle of a dragon team fight and you run havoc. That is a very classic combo. As old as like Vayne Lulu, as old as Jinx Lulu, it is just something that works well together. And I can see the Team Queso are very willing to just say, we want mid-game team fights, we want to run you down, and we hope that we're going to win out in the 5v5.
And it gives Andre that kind of pick that he can carry on if that does go to the jungle. We've seen the jungle pick up for Havivu with that Kha'Zix picked up, so obviously looking for that high burst damage on isolated targets. Darius taken away from Acolyte, no surprises there. One of our players in the league that just whenever you give him a Darius, he can absolutely carry team fights on. We're still saying there's a little bit of flexibility for Team Queso though on where that Olaf goes. Same with the Corki. Corki could go mid, although we don't see it so much these days.
Yeah, Corki generally tends to go into the bot lane. It very much depends on matchup and very much depends on how you want to build out the rest of your comp. What I would say is that Corki is, as I said, almost any time he gets picked, he's 80% magic damage. So he does technically count as a magic damage carry on your team, although he does traditionally play like a normal AD carry. We'll see the Vayne and the Ziggs band away here. Now, obviously, Orianna still being open, it would seem like if you were trying to play a mage in the bot, that would be the case. But Cyvek says, no, going to go for one of the other high-tier AD carries, traditional AD carries right now, which is going to be that Kai'Sa.
Yeah, Kai'Sa picked up for that late game scaling. As you said, Orianna could have been an option, not the way that they've opted. So Camille was banned out by Blows. Team Queso are likely looking for their mid and top lane. Set actually made it all the way through the second phase. We've seen lower priority on Set recently. I think initially after release, he had a lot of presence, and that's in Akali. So bringing an assassin, I was kind of going to say that without having a mage in the bottom lane, that later game scaling of Kai'Sa might take a little bit longer to activate. Now Akali maybe can get fed and jump into the back line herself.
Definitely feels like a bit of a go on and throw down the Vejos here to Ezda, saying, okay, you've saved your pick for very last. You're looking for something. I quite like the Ahri because she's just super safe and she's got great pick potential. It does mean it's going to be harder for Vejos, I think, to really take control of that lane. But you could see that they were hoping to maybe get something more solid in that mid lane matchup for Ezda and keep him in a spot where he felt comfortable. You've also got to remember that Vejos is an incredible Ahri player in his own right, so he'll know exactly when and when he can't look for those windows with the Akali to try and take Ezda down. Very interesting comps. I think I'm preferring Team Queso Stress. I think they've got a much more cohesive teamfight team. Their identity is very much fighter objectives, and just by pure brute force and CC, you're going to win that one out. The problem with Blows Gaming is that they're so single target focused. Like they need to burst one person out followed by one person. When you've got someone like Olaf, Lulu, and Set, and Akali, it makes it very difficult to find the consistent single target lockdown and consistent single target killing killing's terrible way of describing it. TLDR,
single target murder.
TLDR, they have to kill one of them, and because there are so many tools to prevent that from happening, either the Set shielding or the Lulu or the Olaf running out of CC or the smoke screen from Akali, it breaks the flow of the way they want to play these team fights. Whereas with Team Queso, it's like, press our buttons, they're going to do things, and we're going to kill you. And that is just, it's simple, it's easy, it has a clear identity, and that's kind of why I'm in the Team Queso camp, even though I was clearly in the Team Queso camp before we even got into game.
I do kind of agree coming out of the draft. I think the one area that I'm seeing for Blows is if they can somehow get Kha'Zix Renekton to work through topside and like snowball heavily, but you're against Acolyte. That's not really easy to make work, but that is perhaps the one area that they can buy a little bit of time to go through at least the first few fights of the game. Of course, it is Gallus swapping in the top lane, so always something you have to keep in mind when you do those swaps as well. We'll see whether Gallus can make it work with Havivu in the way that Blows Gaming are looking for, because Acolyte, he's one of those superstar players in the league that we always focus on up in that top lane.
Absolutely. And also you've got to remember that if you're looking to play through topside, you're looking to tower dive, you're looking to put pressure on that way, and you're against the Set. And Set has so many great mechanics to kind of prevent you from getting easy tower dive situations or clean tower dive situations. And I think it's going to be difficult for them to exert that. And because also, and I'm sad about this, Stress, Renekton doesn't have the shield breaking capabilities that he's got in League PC. And so therefore it's much harder to take a set down as a Renekton in this matchup.
Yeah, that is fair. I think the one thing that the comparison, I find Renekton does a little bit more the later the game goes in Wild Rift.
Yes.
Thankfully for Renekton.
I would say that's mostly because of Blade of the Ruined King, though, rather than Renekton himself. I think the thing about the Wild Rift is that the way the Blade of the Ruined King procs, it procs immediately off any time that you use your Ruthless Predator stun, which basically means you instantly kill someone. You stun them, then you slow them when they're trying to escape. So it makes it so easy for Renekton to chase down. I also think he's got a slightly higher attack speed scaling in Wild Rift. So it makes it slightly better with attack speed items. But we're getting into semantics of Renekton here, which is probably a little too in depth for this stage of the game.
Yeah, it's a little early on to be doing too deep. And Gallus, however, drops low. Will obviously use the sustain that comes from Renekton, but I thought maybe Blows would be going for top side. Is that Andres with this wave being pushed in, and Veos is here. This is going to be Gallus really struggling to stay alive. His first blood even perfectly goes to the Olaf. That's exactly what Queso needs.
Absolutely, and he just got deleted. His like quarter of his HP bar just disappeared, and I think that was so well played from Acolyte. You could see that he was planning that from almost like their second wave in, right? Stress. He basically had a stacked wave ready to go, and he'd coordinated very, very well with Veos and Andre to go up there. And I don't know whether Blows knew that was coming. They certainly hadn't rotated Ezda up very quickly, but regardless, it was such good wave management from Acolyte to make that happen. And it's already the punishment that you're starting to see come out from what I would say is the incredibly strong part of the Queso roster, which is their top side.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like Acolyte not even having to use his Ignite, like they knew how secure that kill was, that gives Acolyte kill threat for the next few minutes. And Gallus is going to go in. He knows he has Lobo around, but you've already spoken about how Set can just weather through a lot of this damage. And here's Andre up in the top lane again. Hook, Lobo actually goes in, and this is bad timing if you're on the side of Blows, because remember, so much was used by Renekton to stay alive. Flash not available, and Gallus is only level 4 still, hasn't not got his ult yet, but will be able to survive. Used a lot to get out of it. Blows are going to try and re-engage onto Methanol, but here comes Veos. That's low health targets against it. Akali is going to look to dash all the way through, and this is a massacre for Team Queso in the top lane. 3 kills on the board total this game. So
it's just so slow to the punch. Time and time again, he's let Veos out of lane for free, and they just punish Blows. I will say it was a bit of a misplay. I don't know if you caught it, but Andre actually used Reckless Swing on a minion. And I think if he hadn't used the Reckless Swing on a minion, you can watch, I think this is just after actually, if he hadn't used the Reckless Swing on a minion, they might have actually got away with this much sooner and picked off 1 kill. But regardless, Veos, look at how far Ezda is away. How do you let your mid lane like get that far up the map without, responding? Especially because the waves are so balanced in mid as well. It's definitely, I would say, Veos just able to exert map pressure through incredibly quick rotations, great map awareness, great communication on the Queso roster as well. And unfortunately, I just don't think Blows are responding quick enough right now. They're getting caught at the punch without any kind of counter punch to throw.
Yeah, it's kind of rare that you see an Ahri not be able to push the lane out and move quick enough on her own. Like that's typically one of those strengths, right? Is she's got great wave clear. What Ezda has done is farmed the wave out enough that despite being a kill and an assist down, the gold is not too far between just the mid laners, but the rest of the map has been affected by that play. Like Andre now has 2 kills, and they're settling up for this first dragon of the game. I believe, package is there for Joey as well. So this is the moment the Blows do not want to fight. You need to wait that out. And the problem is, it's going to give Team Queso the ability to just sweep through this bottom lane, bottom side of the jungle, set up the vision control they need, and look for anything now.
Absolutely. I mean, whilst the mid lane has stayed relatively even, you're at 1k disadvantage in the jungle and a 1k disadvantage in the top lane. So clearly has been translated to the other lanes.
Yeah, exactly that. Handshake on the objectives, at least for now, although you can see that Team Queso are starting to drift towards topside. It would be a 2 versus 4 if they wanted to take it, though, as we can see Veos in the bottom lane, and Acolyte is going to close the gap. I don't know that the communication is right on point between the two, because Andre had recalls. They don't actually fully commit. Rift Herald taken by Blows. They're going to have to try and utilize that to at least close some of this gold gap, but Ocean Drake did go over to Team Queso.
Yeah, I think actually I would have liked to have seen Team Queso be much more aggressive here on that second objective. I think they definitely had the time to do so. Vejos, not quite charmed under tower, but the Ignite does force him back here. Yeah, that was close. I thought he was going to go for it, but he didn't. But I think I would have liked to see Queso go a bit more aggressive on that Rift Herald. I think it would have been nice to see them exert how strong their top lane is as well. And if they just managed to delay a little longer, they're giving Blows some way of generating some gold back in their favor. Like you can see that Javivu is now down towards that bot side. There's no one actually there to defend that bot lane tier 1. If, Blows pick up the first tower of the game, you're suddenly looking at a relatively even gold score. So, we'll see what happens. Flash from Gallus straight away here. Andre's going to chase him down though, Stress.
Yeah, that slow is already hit, and they're going to just slow Gallus under the tower. Doesn't have the health to survive, and Vejos is looking to go onto Ezde in the bottom lane. Has already got it, gets the jump onto Javivu. However, Lobo is here. They have to back away for a moment, but Akali may still be able to clean this up. No, not able to get anything as the shielding too strong in the bottom lane. It's a top lane tower for the bot lane tower trade, and the first tower did go over to Blows from that Rift Herald.
Yeah, they did get that first tower of the game, which has kind of, well, I say that another tower's just fallen, but it was a good start. Javivu's trying to get the second push out here, so they'll get at least a couple of plates. No one actually stopping Javivu going for this second tier tower right now. So he's kind of getting away with this. As you can see, the rest of Team Queso are kind of diving top.
Gallus is
They're
dead
trying
again.
to go for mid. Yeah, exactly. We'll see Vejos come down to defend, but Javivu did get a nice injection of gold and a nearly tier 2 tower take. We have maybe a team fight.
Yeah, Acolyte didn't manage to get the grab, but it didn't even matter because of how far ahead Team Queso are. Charm lands is not, yes, it is enough. I was going to say not enough to bring him under the tower, but just the damage from Savek and Ezde is enough to punish Acolyte on that from not having his flash.
Still desperately keeping hold of this tier 1 mid. I like teams that do invest resources to prevent tier 1 mid from going down. There are too many times I see teams sacrifice their tier 1 mid for no real map game. This was just the catch on. Yeah, he just walked into an area of no vision and they were waiting for him. There's nothing that Gallus could do in that situation, unfortunately. But I like teams that really do invest resources into protecting tier 1 mid. Losing tier 1 mid suddenly makes it much easier to go for really offensive vision control and push vision into the blue and red side jungle of your enemy and make more picks like you just saw happen there for Gallus. So I think just protecting this tier 1 with everything you've got for Blows is nice because it at least stalls the game out for a bit longer, which may allow you to, like you mentioned in the champ select, get Kai'Sa into a really strong late game stage where she may be able to, with the support of her team, kite backwards and do enough single target damage to take down relevant members.
I think the difficulty in this game is like when Renekton's this far behind, you kind of are relying on your early game picks like Renekton to bridge your gap into the late game, right? You need something to be strong enough that buys Kai'Sa some space and some time, and that's just never going to happen. Like Esther is going to charm up through the bush, but there are 3 members of Queso here, 4 members total with Vejos now pushed up to the tower. They're going to take tower and back away. I think, just hit and run on these objectives is the best way for Queso right now when they don't have a numbers advantage.
Yeah, I mean, Queso are obviously trying to look to put side lane pressure out. This is like one of the most common tactics that we see in Europe, where we just have our AD carries with relatively good wave clear rotate to mid, and then we put our strong side laners in both Baron lane and in the bot lane, and just allow them to push by themselves, looking for individual kills and looking for side lane pressure. It's a very slow way to play the game, but it does mean that when you get to these neutral objectives, you have really good setup because your AD carry and your support are already there.
Hook landed on Methanol, but Acolyte is here now, doesn't have his flash, so can't close the gap to actually get it. And it was a sneak dragon take, because I think Andre's blast coned over the back, and I definitely saw Vejos jump it, and they avoided the vision in the pool. So they're able to now kind of translate that up to topside, because Blows weren't pushing onto the Rift Herald quickly, and a good double objective take here, as long as they can deny Javivu, who jumps in, immediately takes the lantern back out, and look, here comes the damage on top of it, as Andre is going to run through, but that mid lane tower is buying them some time. First kill of the fight does go down, and they're very low, but Gallus can't get there for another one, and this Olaf is terrorizing Blows.
And here goes Vejos.
Yeah, Lobo now not long for this world, as that's a double kill for Andre.
And Methanol goes down at the same time, but Team Queso in complete command at this stage in the game. They're going to drop Rift Herald 2, dropping it in front of this tier 2, looking to go for a very quick inhibitor take, and there is nothing that Javivu can do about it. And that will be a devastating push off what is in the 8-minute objective cycle into a very quick inhibitor take. This is going to be hard for Blows to come back from. Let's take a look back at this fight. I think just the setup from Blows, just not there. You mentioned before, you really need Renekton to be right at the front of that fight with that mid-game power that he's got. He's not there. That's completely exposing your Ahri and your Kai'Sa. Nothing you could do when you have like a very strong kind of all-in comp coming from Team Kai'Sa around these objective fights. Their 5v5 has been much better, but also they were just at better item spikes. They had that, what we like to call the gold, the massive gold advantage to work with at the time as well. So it was a bad setup from Blows, but also you've got to realize that Kai'Sa were in just such a much stronger position in the game at this point as well.
Yeah, for sure. It feels so bad when you're Renekton to be like a third of your health just joining the fight. You're like, I'm here, but I'm not useful at all. Like, I can't do anything if I just get two-shot by the set. And for Acolyte, look at how quickly he just burns through half of the health of Gallus, forces the Dominus out, and Gallus just has to just take it at that point. There's nothing he can do in that situation. No flash, no real escape route, and that means Kai'Sa now 4 versus 3 up in this top lane, because down in the bottom lane, Veos is pushing the bot lane tower. Here comes the engage, and look, it's just all too easy for Kai'Sa, taking Havivu out of the fight, forcing him to flash away. It's another tower going down, while Veos pushes in the bottom lane as well. This is just complete dominance from Kai'Sa.
And they're just that far ahead that they can do this at this point. You know, when you've got an Olaf and a Lulu combination, if you get even a sliver of lead to work with, it becomes one of the most oppressive comps to play against in the world. Olaf runs through your team. His true damage is scaled up with level advantage to the point where he just rips through both your front line and your back line like it's butter. And I think as well, you know, going under the radar, Joey has been silently hitting important item spikes. He's got the Solari Charge Blade, which massively buffs Corki's damage output as well. And it just you're looking at a very, very strong set of item spikes across the board for the entire team right now. And even Andre's gone for a very aggressive Olaf build too. He's gone for the Triforce Olaf build, which is just not massively typical. If you're looking to play a bit safer, you'll probably see Black Cleaver more often than not. But Triforce is just that build where you're like, I am ready to run you down and run you down hard. And that's exactly why Andre has that in the back pocket with the Lulu in tow too. So it's just very difficult for Blows Gaming to actually play. And I think stress realistically, when you've got a Renekton, a Kha'Zix, and an Ahri, if you haven't snowballed from early game, you ain't coming back.
Yeah, and this is the problem. Like, Kai'Sa just doesn't have the time to get the items. Even, you know, the way you build on Kai'Sa to get her evolved abilities doesn't matter about Gallus. He's just falling. Just not had a good game. And it's all because Kai'Sa, from minute 1, set up that slow push in top lane, diving the tower. And they did it like 4 times. They've just constantly focused out Gallus. This is the difficulty of being a sub coming in, where perhaps, like, you know, not to say it's a weak link, but just like a less practiced member of the team that can just get isolated and picked off. And we're seeing that happen here. Like, Team Kai'Sa had a strategy and it's worked perfectly for them. The Blows are never going to have enough time in this game now, especially not with that Baron buff.
No, even if Kai'Sa gets to late game, you still have the scaling of this entire comp from Kai'Sa. They're going in as well.
Yeah, Lobo's down. You can see even the damage coming through as Andre is going to run through. Will end up falling for it, but will Team Kai'Sa be able to pick off these last couple of kills before they can end the game? Here's where Joey from a distance can just output as much damage as he needs with multiple lanes of Baron minions up. I think they're going to just do this the old-fashioned way and get all 3 inhibitors down. I mean, may as well play a little bit safe and not overextend. But yeah, Team Kai'Sa is still in control. A little bit of an overextension, though, into the base.
Yeah, I mean, they have Infernal Drake up right now. There was 4 versus 4. They probably could have gone for a risky end, but why take the risk? When you're in this stage of the tournament, you're in the losers bracket, you lose, you actually go home at this point. I think even though they know they're in a commanding lead, they don't want to take any risks. You can see here, Acolyte suplex right into the middle of the team, an easy pick off for Andre. Enough defensive capabilities to allow Blows to retreat to their own base. But it still does mean they take a 1-for-1 and an inhibitor, which is enough for Team Kai'Sa to come back off and get the dragon and also work their way towards the final remaining inhibitor tower.
Yeah, it's funny. They overextend, but still deal a significant amount of damage to the base.
Yes.
It's not even like they lose from Andre dying in the base at that point. Set soloing down the dragon, and this is how comfortable Kai'Sa know is like, Andre can be all the way out here. There's no smite required when nobody from Blows can get anywhere near the dragon to contest it at all. So they've already set this push up. Now can join the fight as soon as Blows go aggressive. And here it goes. That was a great Lulu ult to keep Andre in place and knock up 3 members as well. 2 members of Blows have already fallen as Kai'Sa is running for the fountain. It looks like Andre is going to run down a 3rd potentially and maybe look for a quadra kill. Is it going to be enough? As that is the set picking up a kill. Denies the quadra, denies any attempt at a penta, but Team Queso 1-0 up with a very comfortable first game.
Like I said, I think they came in as the favorites here, and I think they've shown exactly why that is the case. What's so funny about that game is I can count the number of seconds that we actually looked at the dragon lane on 2 hands, I think, for this whole game. This was completely dominated by mid and jungle roams up towards Acolyte. Completely shut out Gallus. I don't know whether they were intentionally trying to twist the knife on what could have been the weak link, but if they were, they did a damn good job of it. From that point onwards, it was just a snowball of Andre. And when you have an Olaf who has got that much gold in the early game and is able to snowball like crazy like he was, you pair that with a Lulu. We talked about how oppressive this composition is overall. And they're designed to team fight. This comp, we said it from draft, it was designed to team fight around objectives. Blows set up poorly around the objectives and they played exactly into the win condition of Team Queso Stress.
Yeah, this is basically what we expect out of our top teams when it comes to like fundamentals of macro gameplay, where it's just like, okay, we're going to play around top lane, which means we need Acolyte, we need you to set up the push for level 2. You've already taken the fight so that when we roam up, we can just dive. Like those pre-prepared plays are exactly what the top teams should be doing against teams that are less familiar with you know, how to play at an actual competitive top level. And I know Blows, they do compete in Spain. I know that they are familiar with competitive, but like we're talking about the teams that are getting prepared to go and defend Europe on the world stage, right? Like we're looking at teams that when they get to Icons aren't just going to get blasted. And Queso, one of the ones that we have some expectations there from. They have the lineage from last year of maybe not having the results they wanted to at Horizon Cup, but still going and being the European defending champions. You know, those macro fundamentals need to be there, and we're starting to see them out of Queso.
I think like you mentioned, you expect a certain level of competency from your top level teams, and it's nothing bad to say that you expect to see a stomp. When you're expecting a stomp, it's not bad to say that you expect to see a stomp, because that's what you want your top teams in Europe to be doing versus competition that isn't quite at that level yet. And Blows, I mean, they certainly had some moments that game, but even from the damage graphs alone, you can see like it's not a massive amount in favor of Team Queso. It's not like they absolutely ran riot, but it's just the macro plays. The moments they chose to execute their fights were so clean and so well positioned that they were able to just snowball the game from minimal engagement, which is I think what is so important about these top teams is when they do take fights, they're meaningful fights and they convert those meaningful fights.
Yeah, and this is the goal graph that if you have a team that are favored, you want to see them theoretically play out, where it's just constantly advancing their lead. In the early game, sure, it's small leads, but then just scaling all the way through to winning the game basically before like Elder spawns or anything like that. It's very, very comfortable for them. Sure, there were a few over-aggressive plays here and there, but when you're running Olaf Lulu, your game plan is I'm going to run in and I'm going to try and kill you, and hopefully I kill you and the rest of my team cleans up. Let's take a look at the play of the game. There's a couple of top dives that it could be. I'm not sure exactly which one is going to be. It could easily be that level 2 one.
Yeah, there are plenty of good plays. I think it's going to be that fight around the second Rift Herald. This is just a pure, I think, very classic example of what the Team Queso comp was supposed to do. Like, they just run Andre at the front line. They allow him with the Lulu to just wreak havoc, and then you have the supporting roster of Vejos and Joey who just pick up the scraps where they can. It's a very clean, very simple comp to execute, and that fight right there was a perfect example of how it is supposed to work.
Yeah, I even was able to take the time this time around watching it to see where Gallus ended up getting routed to. Vejos jumps on him, puts him at a 3rd health, and it's just like, oh, you can't do anything in this fight. Renekton, you're not able to get anywhere near. We'll see whether Blows can bounce back. Team Queso with a very convincing first game. It was what we expected from them. Let's see whether that trend continues as we head to game 2 in about 3.5 minutes time.
Ready?
Welcome back to Team Queso versus Blows Gaming. It's a Spanish showdown between two teams in the lower bracket, and Team Queso putting a very convincing first game on the board to be leading 1-0. We were just talking in the break a little bit about being behind on Renekton and how difficult that is in the top lane. Feels almost impossible when you get stopped early on that Renekton.
Yeah, I play a lot of Renekton, and I kind of feel for Gallus there. Like, Renekton is good because Blade of the Ruined King, first item Renekton, is really broken. Like, super good at first team fights around dragons and Rift Heralds. If you're doing badly, you want to build Black Cleaver because it's the better item for a Renekton that's not ahead. But it's also not as oppressive, and it also means Renekton doesn't feel as strong at that stage in the game. And I feel for Gallus because it's really hard to make that cool. Really hard to make that cool. Goodness gracious.
Yes, I feel bad for Gallus, but Gallus has been replaced in the second game by Bamboo. Of course, Bamboo is the starting top laner for Blows Gaming. We don't have full reasoning behind the game one swap, but Bamboo will bring Blows Gaming to hopefully their full strength lineup here for game number 2. We'll see whether it makes much of an impact, because honestly, I think there are very few top laners even in the league that can weather through the amount of aggression that came top lane from Andre and Acolyte in that game when it was very well played.
Yeah, I think you need to realize that when you're playing top lane or playing Baron lane versus Team Queso, you're not just playing versus Acolyte, you're very often playing versus Andre. And Andre Acolyte, they have been famed for their ability to link up, create tower dive situations, and just play oppressively and shut the enemy Baron laner out of the game. And as you mentioned, there are very few Baron laners in our entire league that can weather that storm.
Yeah, I'm sure some of them are out there thinking, I could have done it. I could have done it. We'll have to test when you go up against Team Queso. Stuart was keeping an eagle eye on game 1. Let's hear if he picked out anything else that we didn't catch out on for our game 2 key points.
Thank you very much, Stress. A few key points to go into the second game. We talk about mid lane rotations and rotations in general. Veos was just first to the rotations every time, and Ezda was a little bit slow to it, and you always had that focus in the Baron lane as well. The 3-man dive multiple times to Team Queso just allowed them to get ahead in the early game. I really want to see the rotations come out more from Blows game, especially on Lobo as well. On a champion like Thresh, it didn't seem like he did that much. So yeah, just mid lane rotations and rotation in general for Blows game, and I think need to be a step above Team Queso, which is very, very hard to ask. We talk about Andre as well being the carry. We can kind of see the way that Team Queso is starting to play now. Obviously, Andre is probably one of the best junglers in the entire tournament, and definitely the best player for Team Queso. So they always like to get him on a carry. Then you like to pair him with Yumi, what we've seen before. We've seen Olaf Lulu now, so we'll have to see if there's anything else that this Team Queso lineup can do. And then we talk about the full control for Team Queso coming into it. I think from the start of the game to right to the finish as well, Queso were just in full control. Blows couldn't really do anything about it, and it definitely have to come back to Blows now. We have to think of what Blows needs to do and what Blows can do to try and get back into this series. They're going to have to come up with something special. We'll have to see as we get into game on 2. Back to Stress and Iskander.
Thanks, Stuart. Looking at the draft that we're getting close to for game number 2, I think this is one of those series where I don't think Blows can effectively ban out Queso. I think Queso have too wide of a champion pool. I do wonder if they want to make changes and take away the Olaf to make it a slight bit harder for Andre to carry. I wonder whether that's one thing they'll look to do in the second game.
Maybe. I don't know. It's one of those situations where I want to be really positive, and I want to find a way where I think that Blows can find an angle here. But you are looking at one of the top teams in Europe versus, a team that potentially isn't. Hey, but look,
Right.
if you want to buy out the Queso roster. And,
Make money talk on this one. Yeah, that's the problem, right? It's like you could ban the exact comp they just did, and they'll bring something else and perform at exactly the same level. So I think we're still expecting Team Queso to walk through this series fairly comfortably. I wonder if there's a world where Blows maybe pick up something like Yumi and come out with something broken, whether they can half cheese their way to a win. I don't really call it cheese, but yeah, maybe they can do something like that, but I think Queso are just overall very, very consistent, and they're not even going to let it happen. Queso are going to say, we know how strong this champion is. We won last week with it. Let's take away Yuumi. Varus is gone as well from blows. There's the Olaf ban. I like it, but I think, you know, Lee Sin, Fiora, even the likes of Gragas, I think we're going to see Andre have a strong performance on still.
I mean, look, there was a pretty hot conversation in Europe about whether Vex or Andre is the best Lee Sin on the entire European server. So, you know, like there is, it's no question that Andre has just plenty of other champions in his wheelhouse that are going to be just as good for him and the team. We'll see the Zed ban away. So we're not going to see Zed, which I actually think teams have started to respect the fact that Zed is actually really strong on this patch, especially because he could be so easily unleashed with AP bot laners now as well. So Zed being taken away, that'll be the Galio banned, just in case they were expecting a potential Galio-Camille combination. We know that Andre also loves his Camille, so as well as Acolyte, to be completely honest with you. That'll be the Garen. I mentioned before, Garen is a very safe, easy pick that can kind of nullify any skill differences in the Baron lane, and that's not going to be the case. We'll see a Fiora immediately locked in here that could either go to Havivu or could either go to Bamboo. Of course, those are the two common roles for Fiora right now in Wild Rift.
Yeah, and I think you have to take the Fiora here. I heard a little bit on Friday, you and the casters talking about Fiora into Lee Sin and how Fiora can outscale fairly well and kind of deny a little bit of the engage potential that Lee wants to bring. Andre's going to say, I don't care. I'm still going to go for it. Get that early game presence. There's no reason not to for a team like Team Queso.
It's a skill matchup, right? So Lee into Fiora as a jungle matchup is a skill matchup, but it's because Lee doesn't have very many skill matchups because he beats generally everybody. So Fiora is like one of the best picks that you can pick into Lee because it is a bit of a skill matchup in some of those earlier engages. It will be Jace and Morgana, who was also banned previously. So you can see that Blows are actually getting some of the picks that I think they feel more comfortable with, maybe some of the picks that they were previously taken away from them. So this is a good start for the Blows Gaming roster. I also always love the Fiora combined with a Morgana combination like Black Shield plus Fiora is also always really good. So, you know, it's a nice start. And there's the Gragas. So if you're talking about power picks right now for Blows Gaming, we're seeing a lot of current meta power picks stacked together in this roster.
Yeah, that's totally true. Like really big high power picks. I think there's the potential for Fiora obviously to get fed alongside these two other mages. I will say that I don't know that they synergize amazingly well, Morgana and Gragas and Fiora. I kind of want to see where the rest of this lineup rounds out. Ziggs picked up for Queso, so taking that mage in the bottom lane gives them a little bit of flexibility now that they obviously have a Jace as a very strong AD laner. Now they pick up some of that magic damage, gives them a lot more options through the second part of the draft.
Also, I really like Ziggs into Morgana. Like that Black Shield is not going to last long versus pretty much any of Ziggs' skills in the late game. So it's a nice way of just immediately like destroying the Black Shield protection against abilities. So it's nice. It's a good response. I do agree. There's a bit of anti-synergy in terms of ultimates between Gragas and Morgana. Depends on how you use them, of course. I would say that most Gragases very rarely use their cask to separate fights. A lot of them mostly are using them to isolate targets and try and get them into a kill position. So we'll see how it gets used. But of course, if it's incorrectly used, there is plenty of anti-synergy that could happen between those two picks. So the next ban's coming through. Darius being taken away here by Team Queso, which makes me feel like they have already secured their Baron lane in the form of Jace. So we won't be seeing Vejos by the Jace mid. And we'll see the Braum banned away, which maybe indicates... Well, I suppose it's decent versus the binding from Morgana because you can block it out. Yeah. I mean, theoretically you can, although I mean it would just hit whoever the other support is as well. So maybe it's to block the Gragas barrel, but anyway, nevertheless, maybe the other half of it is just to block the disengage that Braum gives. Riven was taken away. That's a very, I would say niche, but we're seeing it more when it comes to like, a lot of American teams are playing Riven, can be played as a carry. Thresh I like banned away. We talked about it in the first draft. Whenever you see a lower mobility mage in that bottom lane, Thresh always gives them a little bit more security. And we're flexing still. Set can be played in multiple positions. Could be support, could be Baron lane. Yeah, could be, absolutely. I would say more likely to be Acolytes. So that might mean that we are actually going to see the Jace mid. Of course, you can flex Set into any of those matchups. Set can go mid. We've seen Set mid as well. We've seen, as you said, Set support too. Be interesting to see Set support with Ziggs though. It's a bit of a rough lane for the Set Ziggs. You would probably want a little bit more support for your Ziggs in that bot lane. We'll see the Renekton come through for Bamboo, which means it is going to be Fiora jungle. I'm just going to be interested to see where Ezda's going. I imagine it's going to be Gragas mid at this point. Yeah, so Alistair comes through. So it's going to be Morgana, Alistair bot, Gragas mid, I assume.
I'm wondering where the pivot is here, because do you pair a hyper carry bot lane with Set, put Ziggs mid and Jace top? Now that's not standard at all, but like Team Queso, if they fall behind, are going to run out of damage against this very tanky trio of Gragas, Renekton, Alistair. No, that's not going to be the case. It is going to be Nami in that support role. Set goes likely to the top lane with Jace in the middle lane.
Yep, and it's going to be Ziggs Nami, which is an incredibly strong poke lane. And again, Morgana will be safe here. This is an easy lane for Morgana to navigate, but she's never going to get the push herself. She's just going to be constantly using wave to clear near her own tower. So it's a strong lane that you can really bully the Alistair out, but with Morgana, she's always going to be able to clear that wave with Tormented Soil under her own tower relatively easily. Interesting set of comps here. Interesting set of comps. I much prefer the Blows Gaming draft this time round, but I want to see Ezda be much more active on the map. I want to see Ezda try and make their way around the roams that we saw coming up from Team Queso. You need to counter how good Team Queso are playing around the Baron lane and Baron lane dives. It's far too easy for them to get away with what they were getting away with last game.
A little bit worried Gragas into Jace, though, if that is going to be the mid lane matchup. I think Ezda's going to get shoved in, and it's going to be a difficult lane, I feel, at least for the early game until Gragas gets that ultimate kill threat. For me, a weird draft out of Queso in the sense that there's a world where if they fall behind, they run out of the ability to eat through the tank health pool. But if they get ahead, this is the kind of comp that's going to run over you very quickly. And we just saw Queso do a very good job of getting ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be very concerned if you're a Blows Gaming that Team Queso will just do the same thing they did to you last game.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you'll always be aware of. Maybe looking to invest some more vision around your mid and Baron lane connection. Ensure that your own jungle, at least the jungle entrances, are lit up so you can see those rotations happen. It's going to be an interesting one. I will say that one of the things that maybe has gone under the radar about the resurgence of Gragas is the buff to Second Wind as a rune. It got buffed in terms of the recovery time was halved, and Gragas loves Second Wind because it synergizes incredibly well with his passive and provides a lot of sustain to him even when he's in a bad lane matchup. So, and maybe this is also a reason that we're starting to see Gragas come back into the fray a little bit, because that Second Wind buff has actually helped Gragas out in terms of his own recovery.
Slightly different lane matchups than what we were expecting. It is set for Veos in that middle lane. So they're going to try and leverage Acolyte with the lead in the top lane, utilizing that Jace into Renekton. So a little bit different, but yes, exactly as you said about that Gragas regeneration and how that works with the rune changes is one of the reasons why we've seen Gragas picked as a fairly safe laner as well as in the jungle. So we'll have to see whether Gragas actually gets any adjustments, because I feel like he might be a little too strong right now. Ezda takes the trade.
So difficult to balance because he got a slurry of nerfs because he was just so popular, and all they did was they touched his base AD and they buffed his base AD by 6, and suddenly everyone's like, wait a second, this Gragas pick is busted. We have a bit of a congregation in the mid lane here. So trying to get
Andre.
Oh, yeah.
Forces the flash out of Lobo. Still had the resonating strike available. Flash into the pull-in. Gets the bubble. The Aqua Prison is perfectly done as Queso roam up from the bottom lane. It seems very similar to game one. This time it's in the middle lane. Queso move first, get the first blood.
Yeah, I think that Havivu knew that was not a fight that he was interested in. You often see this, right? You often see junglers go mid to ensure that you get mid lane priority, because mid lane priority is absolutely key for first river scuttles. Like, you just need to have that for the river scuttler. And so obviously Havivu was like, we're not winning this fight. We've lost priority in every sense of the word. So I'm just going to go take the top lane scuttle whilst you're distracting them. And so essentially Alistair served as a sacrifice for top lane scuttle for Havivu. But I think it was a good rotation from Team Chaos. Team Chaos? What did I just say?
Team Queso and Veos to be able to do it as Acolyte. Drops a little low in the top lane. Is barely going to not survive under tower. I thought he was out free, but Havivu's going to flash forward. That's a good start for this Fiora.
Yeah, brilliant rotation from Havivu. Exactly what you want. And even more impressive is they've stacked the wave to force Acolyte to lose at least a few minions to tower. That's very hard to do in Wild Rift because you get back to lane so quickly. Like, punishing through shoving waves doesn't happen as often. But this time round, they positioned it just so perfectly that he's going to lose at least a few minions to that tower. And that is very punishing now for Acolyte. Going to lose out a little bit. He's actually behind in gold to Bamboo, despite winning that matchup by himself.
Yeah, the number of times I play solo lane and I'm like, I'm going to stay one more wave and shove it out. And then I die because I forget how quickly people get back to lane. You're like, I'll deny all of this CS. So it's going to be top lane again for Havivu. And I think this is great game plan for them, considering they've already got the 1 kill onto Fiora. If Fiora can get ahead, she's going to take over the late game. But Queso kind of reading the play already, knowing that they have more control over bottom side, come in, drop a few wards, take away the red buff, and just try and keep the pressure onto Havivu. Maybe looking for a dive on Ezda, but it's not quite there yet.
No, really great presence of mind, honestly. They knew that Havivu was hanging around topside. It's a very easy matchup to exploit with a Renekton, especially if you have flash or anything available. You just jump in, stun, and Fiora does the rest of the work. And, you know, Jace is not exactly the tankiest Baron laner in existence, so it's a very easy matchup to just kind of run away with if you're able to do so. So I think Havivu was maybe sensing an opportunity to go and invest resources on the top side of the map. You can certainly see that that's where they're spending most of their time around neutral objectives right now as well, really realizing that their one in this game is a strong top side. And they're trying to use that to their greatest ability, though Andre feels very confident that he's in a strong position on this Lee Sin to counter that, and they've rotated their entire roster up to counter at the Rift Tower.
Wow, Blow's actually just completely disengaging at first. That was a possibility that they could have had it stolen away. There comes the Ziggs ultimate. It's going to put everybody from Blow's low, and if the rest of the follow-through damage comes out of Team Queso, this should be a pretty quick fight, but Blow's weather the first part, it's not enough for them to stay alive as they take another 3 kills for Team Queso.
Oh, stress. What was that engage, man? Like, I just watched yeah, a little bit spicy from Vejos here.
Yeah, Vejos going behind the tower. We'll talk about that engage in a moment as Vejos can back himself away.
Yeah, I should be able to escape for the time being. Yeah, it felt like I was watching it in slow motion, and let's watch it back again. Lobo, he pulverizes the Rift Herald, so a lot of his CCs just dropped, and one by one, Blows Gaming just try to run in and do something, like either find a kill or looking for a sneak smite. The setup was not there again. This was the weakness of Blows in the previous game. They were just not good at setting up for these big objective fights, and that's a little bit of an oopsie daisy for them because they've lost their top side strength now, and that was the only thing they had going for them. We are now looking at a 5,000 gold lead almost materializing for Blows Gaming here. Not a good look if you're Blows Gaming. You're not in the strongest spot right now. And I think it was just because you were so desperate to fight for an objective that they had in their minds that that was the objective that they were going to take because of strong top side. They weren't willing to back off. They weren't willing to reorganize around the dragon. And I think that bullheadedness of the engage comes through.
There's the bullheadedness on full display as they get the triple knockup. But look, the first kill has already gone through in favor of Team Queso, and now they're just running Blows away. They're going to look to focus the objective out? No, because Andres goes in aggressive with Acolyte. There's a double knockup is enough to at least take out one, but it's still all Team Queso as Vejos don't know whether he can actually find an angle into this fight, but Queso continue to advance their lead.
Yeah, and you can see again that Blows Gaming don't know how they want to approach these objectives. They think they want to fight them, especially Lobo thinks they want to fight them, but the rest of the team just isn't quite set up correctly again. It's sad for Blows because these are just simple mistakes that maybe could have been rectified just by thinking about how they wanted to approach the matchup or approach these team fights differently, but they're giving away what are some of the simplest team fights that I think Team Queso will ever see in their lives. You can see here, Ezda taken down low, killed over. I think it was the Dragon's Rage kick used at the very last moment to take him down. Lobo had already gone for the engage at this point.
We're into another fight mid lane though. Aqua Prison lands, and that's another kill. Bamboo or Gallus, it doesn't seem to matter. This Renekton pick has not worked out for Blows. Rift Herald has spawned now as well in the middle lane, and here comes Acolyte from behind the tower. Only 3 members of Blows are here because Gragas is down in the bottom lane, and this is all Queso all over them at this point. Blows gets picked off by another Aqua Prison landing, and Alistair's not long either. This is just complete domination once again. Second game in a row. In comes Set from the side. It's a double kill for Andre, making his Lee Sin felt once again. Yeah,
Andre just able to punish in the jungle so easily. You can see the gap between him and pretty much any other jungler you'd like to see maybe outside the top 3. And Andre just looks amazing on this pick. I really, really do think that, you can give him anything and he's going to shine. But Lee Sin and Olaf are 2 of his specialities, and you can see why. But every player on Team Queso is having a banger. They've managed to snowball again off neutral objective fights, and I think that's one of the things that Team Queso does so well. They have great setup around objective fights. When we talked about their, oh my god, look at that build as well. He's gone for the Triforce Lee. This is often what you'd see in solo queue, but in the Triforce Lee in competitive just shows you how far he is ahead of his competition. But one of the things that we would see last year from Team Queso, and the identity that we gave Team Queso as a roster last year, was their objective team fighting was so good. That was what gave them the edge over a lot of other people, especially in the late game. When in their sort of grudge matchup with Rick's Gaming Stress in the Origin series, even in these late game fights, the edge that they had was their team fighting capabilities.
Well, we'll see if they can fight their way out of a 2 versus 3 here, as they've already done 2 of the 3 kills they needed. Here's Veos. It's going to be a chase down. I thought he was going to get the 2nd kill already. We'll be able to chase Bamboo. I wanted to mention Veos' build. I'm not a build aficionado, but this is Blade of the Ruined King set. Looking to run down top lane.
Pretty, actually, funnily enough, I know coming from PC that sounds weird, but that's also pretty normal.
Okay, interesting.
They had to nerf Set's attack speed scaling on the last patch because it was too good.
Of course.
And that actually, the Blade of the Ruined King into Serax or Blade of the Ruined King into Black Cleaver is actually, believe it or not, the standard set build.
Okay, I need to do a little bit more homework on like item builds, because there's some janky ones that I'm not so familiar with. So sometimes I see it and I'm like, of course, he's just going to punch faster. It's going to be great. And that's exactly what Veos is doing, though, is he's just running through the entire lineup of blows.
Yeah, punching faster is exactly what makes Set good. So it is a very common build for Sets right now, but it's also partly due to the fact that his tank build really sucks. So it's sort of like the best possible option that you've got for him in the current meta. It used to be significantly better, by the way, before they nerfed him. It's still good, as you can see, but it used to be really oppressive before they had some of those nerfs come through.
This is why I'm the shouty man. Even though I made it into Diamond 3 last night, I'm just one of those inflated players. So I'm not here for the analysis.
I actually don't know, because I might have decayed out of Master. Yeah. So I might be there or thereabouts now, if I'm honest with you.
Come join the inflated players in the middle of Diamond. It's going to be great. As Andre is looking to inflate his KDA, looking for another dive. I mean, Queso are just in this moment of the game where they're waiting for the neutrals to spawn. Infernal Drake is up. They know that they can take it. They have full control of the bottom side of the map. And Blows don't really have many options. The problem was like this Fiora needed to scale. Beautiful Aqua Prison once again, and we're at 13,000 gold lead at 10 minutes into the game. That's really just the mark of how far ahead Queso are.
Yeah, you want to say something, don't you? You want to say, oh, well, there's a chance. Or
I don't see the chance.
Yeah, if they do this, then Blows Gaming maybe has an angle back in, but let's not kill ourselves. There isn't an angle back in here. This is formalities for Team Queso to secure their place in, I believe, the loser bracket semi-finals. So it is just formalities at this point for Team Queso. They are, as you can see, single-handedly, even just 1v4ing, 1v5ing, dismantling members on the side of Blows Gaming at this point in time, and I don't really see a good win condition. Havivu, man, you are going to escape, maybe.
they don't convert to the kill. The thing is, like, if Blows were going to win this game, they needed to stem the aggression early game and not fall too far behind, which is a really big ask. Like, from here, your tanks just cannot survive the damage. That was really, like, the factor that would have been difficult for Queso to output later on. And I just don't see a world in which we get there when there's 2 dragons over towards Queso where they get survivability and extra damage. They're going to be able to easily set up for you know, the Baron when it sets up and get multiple kills and just push through. I think really there's not a whole lot that Blows can do aside from somehow winning an overextended engage from Queso, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Cast the curse as there goes Joey, blasted into the rest of Blows, but Acolyte and Team Queso are here. Joey's fallen, but I think it's only a matter of time before the rest of the team end up picking off the kills. Over the wall comes Andres, kicks one member in, deals with Lobo as well, gets a third for himself. It's a legendary performance. Double kill for the Lee Sin, Triforce Lee Sin running rampant through this game. That's going to be the inhibitor getting broken.
Yeah, Joey was the sacrificial lamb which opened the gates here for Team Queso. Andre, even with a very underfed Gragas, you can see how good Gragas is as that AP threat.
Nearly getting the kill onto Bamboo as well. No minion wave makes it a little trickier for this moment to get an inhibitor. And actually, these low health bars are dangerously poised for blows. Andre's going to come through the top side. They will get the first inhibitor finally. It's taken them a little while longer than they would have liked it to. And Queso should be able to run away from here with the mobility they have. But blows are going to try and chase. Of course, Fiora can just dash forward, look for everything. Proto Belt as well. Should be able to pick up Veos, although, hang on, here's the fight. Riposte comes through. Set's going to match it on a shield of his own. And oh, it looked good for blows for a moment. And then the damage came out from Queso, as Andre is only a third of his health, and he thinks he can still go aggressive into 3 people. That gives you an idea of how good of a performance he's having.
Really lovely timing on the haymaker from Veos, by the way.
Oh, Andre's down. And here comes Joey for Sacrificial Lamb again, but we'll get out this time.
He'll be out. I mean, they gave Andre away here. So inhibitor down in the Baron lane. We are waiting to see, obviously the big objective spawn is the Baron, which is already on the table. We have another Dragon spawning momentarily. Whether Blows Gaming even feel like they are in a position to approach that Dragon, let alone contest it, we will have to see. I think Team Queso, they're playing safe, but as I mentioned in the previous game, I don't blame them for playing safe. You know, you are in a situation where if you lose, you're out of the competition. You really don't want to do anything that could potentially put you in a jeopardy or in a hazardous situation. So I think Team Queso very cleverly just ticking the boxes, painting by numbers, I like to call it, ensuring that they are doing everything the correct way to guarantee their victory.
Oh, Bamboo's just going to get run down. Jace damage is difficult to deal with. However, Acolyte may very well trade his life for it, as well as Havivu's there. Does get the knockback from Jace, but Havivu is very, very low here. Joey Skaggs is going to at least get that vital proc from Fiora. It's not enough to pick up the kill, and now it's Lobo not going to be able to do any damage at all on this Alistair. Meanwhile, in the base, Veos is getting taken incredibly low, but it's a 1 versus 2, and he's been able to push a wave up here. He's actually going to win the 1 versus 2 for himself for a moment, takes 1 out, as the rest of the team are going to be able to go through the bottom lane, maybe look for Dragon, maybe look for Baron, whatever Team Queso want to do at this point. It is scrappy, but it's still heavily in control for Team Queso.
Scrappy, like you mentioned, but it is just by minor outplays, I think, at this point as well. Team Queso getting the edge. They have a bit of time to work with here. Obviously, Bamboo is back up and kicking very low. I think, Joey, a single bomb plus a basic attack should secure that mid lane inhibitor. He's actually going to flush away for Hazard being caught by the Morgana. And that is a second inhibitor tower now dropped for Team Queso as they work their way towards potentially challenging that Dragon.
Oh, Andre, a little bit of a missed combo there on the flash kick Sonic Wave follow-up. Looked like it should have been quite simple, but Andre trying to make it maybe more difficult than it needed to be. Inhibitor Wave pushing top, Inhibitor Wave pushing mid lane with those supers. It opens up Baron, and as soon as the Baron's picked up here, the wave clear is all magic damage for blows, so there's basically no way of clearing out 2 waves of Baron minions that quickly. Joey's going to get caught on a ward here as it's dropped over the wall, and Queso are trying to make the bait play happen here, because as soon as they clear the vision out from blows, they know that they can catch them out. Veos is even behind enemy lines here. If he can grab onto somebody, he's been caught on a ward. The rest of Queso have the ability to go through topside, through the mid lane as well. That's Acolyte picking off 1. That's going to open up an attempt at the Baron as well. Unless they want to just push through mid. That's Bamboo, very, very low. Set picks 1 off with the suplex, looking for more. It's all clinical for Team Queso. They're going to follow up for the double kill. Andre is making it look so incredibly easy on this Lee Sin. Only Havivu and Lobo remain for Blows Gaming, and it's going to be a 2-0. It just depends on who's going to pick up these final kills, as Andre will fall. It's not long for Havivu to get back into the base. There's the shock blast through the acceleration gate, and Team Queso are going to accelerate their way through the lower bracket and look for a matchup against the winner of our second series of the day. Team Queso make it look easy with a 2-0 win over Blows Gaming.
And I think, you know, we expected this to be the result. I don't want to sugarcoat this. I don't want to give you guys kind of like false pretenses that we believed it was going to go any other way. But it's good to see that Team Queso are being clinical. I will say that I think that they seem to lack a bit of killer instinct. I don't know whether it was because of the sort of the danger of it being an elimination match and they really didn't want to take any risks. But against better teams, you give them 18 minutes when you have that kind of gold lead at the first Dragon fights. they are going to find a way back in and get back at you and make more of those opportunities that you gave over to them. So I think if there's anything for Team Queso to take away from this game, it's that just those key moments where you really need to be accelerating and taking more from your opponents. We want to see them kind of turn that dial up just a little bit when they're going up against some of the top teams in our competition. But I think for the most part, it was relatively clinical. As I said, it was a painting by numbers experience for Team Queso. They just did everything by the book, ensured they dotted their I's and crossed their T's, took every inhibitor, took every tower, and worked their way through the base in a regular fashion. But it was, as we said on paper, a bit of a mismatch, and I think Team Queso knew that, and their star player, Andre, I think really stepped up to the mark to stress.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of play we've been hyping up, right? Where it's like you give him a pick like Lee Sin or even the Olaf in game one, he will carry the game. And with players that can allow him those resources, like we know Acolyte can carry, we know Veos can carry, but like they set up the jungle so incredibly well for Andre that when they're able to play around him, that's when Queso looked best. I totally agree on like tightening up some of the loose screws towards the end of the game. I wonder whether they just didn't know that they were that far ahead. Like I know they knew they were winning, but a couple of kills did go over to Hervivu here and there. Yeah, that's one of the things is like sometimes teams don't know that they're 16k gold up when they are. And you're like, we can just one-shot everybody. But nevertheless, Andre, 14-2-4 with that Lee Sin build you're always going to see in solo queue and wonder why the hell your jungler's doing it, because they end up dying all the time. But not Andre. Andre only died twice in the entire game. Really strong performance from Team Queso. Expected, but that's where you want to see them follow through. You don't want to see them fall at a hurdle that should be an easy win for them.
Yeah, especially if you're a huge Team Queso fan. Like, I know this was a Spanish showdown, and the Spanish community is amazing, by the way. They are really vocal, really passionate, and really supportive. And I think obviously it's a bit of a Spanish showdown. You never like to see two Spanish teams matched up against each other. But if you're a Spanish fan, you've got Team Queso. They're one of the best teams in Europe, and I think you needed them to show that today, and they did. I think they had a really good game, and I think if they can continue their form, especially on their sort of top side with the combination between Vejos, Andre, and Acolyte, I think you're looking at a team that is clearly going to do incredibly well in this tournament.
Yeah, we're expecting to see Queso for another couple of rounds, I would say. The thing about Blows, I think, you know, they now have time before the last chance qualifier. Unfortunately for Blows, they are eliminated from this stage of the competition, falling out of the lower bracket. When we saw them performing against teams like Principality and they performed well, I don't think there's too much that needs to change about their play style, but I think it's more of an in-game thing. Stuart and yourself mentioned it a lot about just their reaction times of roaming out of lane and contesting plays, and there were some plays that they started to contest and they backed away and then they kind of went aggressive again, like Lobo on the Alistair looking for an engage when the rest of the team are backing away. That's the kind of stuff that you can scrim and get better at over the next few weeks before the last chance qualifier. They still are not completely done with the WREC. We probably will see them later on this week.
Yeah, again, like you mentioned, last chance qualifier is going to be a great spot for all of our teams that are just on the fringes of being great to put themselves in that book and make sure they're still in with a fighting chance of representing Europe. And I think, as you mentioned, there were some moments there in that game where it felt like basic errors, especially those Alistair engages, but nonetheless, those can be fixed and fixed relatively easily.
Yeah, a lot of the fights in this game started with like Lobo and Blows looking to contest. Let's take a look at our play of the game and see whether any of those plays were the undoing of Blows. A lot of them just came from Andre looking aggressively for all of the fights on this Lee Sin.
This was I feel bad that this is the play of the game, because this was just felt like a bit of an error in execution from Blows Gaming. You know, as we saw, like the Alistair engage was a little bit disjointed from the rest of his team, and I think when you're running an Alistair on your team, you do need to be quite unified in the way that you look for those engages. You need to be ready to back him up as soon as he presses those two buttons and jumps in with the headbutt pulve combo. There needs to be an immediate follow-up, because he ran in, he pulverized the Rift Herald and then was just kind of left for dead in the middle of the team fight. It wasn't the most coordinated play from Blows Gaming right there. But again, you know, at the end of the day, they were trying to play it, from their perspective, trying to play around the area of the map that they felt was strong, because they had a good early start for their top jungle duos. So they were trying to play around the strong side of the map, and they was just so desperate to keep that strong side of the top map with the Rift Herald, but unfortunately played right into Team Queso's hands.
Yeah, Lobo, I promise I didn't set you up for that. I didn't know that was going to be player of the game immediately. Let's take a look at who our MVP was. I mean, Team Queso built this entire series around Andre out of the jungle. It would heavily surprise me if he's not the MVP, but I never know as we come into these segments. So I'm just going to assume it's Andre. Yeah, of course it is. Both games, Olaf and then Lee Sin.
Yeah, I think he usually stands out as the performer on the Team Queso roster. I think he's such an excellent jungler. He's really smart about the game. And, you know, I think when Ruiz was on the team, there were two players that were often sort of looking to be that sort of resource-heavy star player. And I think now with Vejos, he's much more comfortable supporting and helping Andre and helping a game plan that accelerates Andre as well. And I think this time round, both of these games, you just saw how easy it was to play around this superstar jungler, one of the best junglers in Europe. Probably a lot of people consider him the best jungler in Europe. So I think deserved MVP for Andre here. And I think we'll see many more of those throughout Wild Rift Esports.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Like a player that you have to keep your eye on and you have to respect. Difficult to ban out as well. I'm looking forward to seeing more from Queso. I think when we start getting the matchups with like Vex in the mix, SE7 is also a jungler who we're starting to see a little bit more from WREC. So I think there are some big names in that jungle role, and we have some really exciting jungle players in Europe. I want to hear from one of the players from Team Queso. This is a player who has had a quiet set of games, not out of any negativity, but just because Andre has been carrying so heavily. We've got an interview with Joey with Stuart. Let's hear what Joey has to say.
Thank you very much, Stress. I'm indeed joined by Joey. Joey, congratulations on a very dominant series. I think Stress said a little bit there. Not really yourself. You were kind of a little bit on the island down in the duo lane, but how do you and the team feel after that victory?
Feels fine. Feels good. You know, it's good. It's always good to get a dub. It's a clean dub, so we're good.
Good stuff. And for yourself as a duo lane player, I want to ask you the most important question that you're probably going to get asked. Do you prefer AD carries or AP carries? What do you think?
I prefer AD carries. That's why I started playing the role. I did not start to play this role to be a mage bot, but I'm always happy to do what is good in the meta and what helps the team the most. I don't really care about what I play. As long as we win, I'm fine with that. It's just, I think I'll always prefer AD carries. I think it fits my playstyle a bit better, but I think I'm fine with the other style as well, and I'll continue doing it if that's what we need to win.
I mean, we've seen you pop off on the Ziggs as well, been really good, strong performances on the Ziggs and on them AP carries. So we know that you've been practicing it. And obviously, for the next series, you're going to be playing against Zero Zone or Control. What are your predictions going into that? Who do you think is going to come out on top?
It's probably going to be Zero Zone. I kind of want to face them. I've actually faced them, I think, a lot of times in tournaments before, especially our nation. So I would be pretty excited to face him again. I always like playing against him. So my prediction would be Zero Zone.
Awesome stuff. Joey, a pleasure to have you on the broadcast as always. Good luck in the next round for the rest of the tournament. Back to Stress and Scoundrel.
Joey is not a control stan like the rest of the broadcast. That's what I'm finding out. Same with not really an AP mage stan either. I feel like listening to Joey and like looking behind his eyes, there's a burning desire to play like Vayne and mechanically heavy
I know what Joey's like. I played duo with Joey a lot, and trust me, he's not a mage player. this is a guy that likes level 2 all in on Vayne under tower. Like that's Joey's playstyle.
My betting is like Joey's praying for a meta where he can just put Andre on Nunu and just be like, you do nothing for the game. I'll carry this game. Like this is all on me. Build around me. I'm looking forward to seeing, when we can see Joey maybe flex a little bit more on the picks that he wants to play. As I said before the interview, like I feel like Joey's been a very solid player and has done a really good job where he's needed to. But Team Queso haven't needed him to step up and be that primary carry yet. I wonder whether we'll get there in this tournament or whether the meta will shift. But Team Queso 2-0 over Blows made it look very easy, very convincing as expected. Closer series coming up next, though, with Zero Zone against Control. We'll be back in 3.5 minutes to bring you our second series of the day.